Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is February 14th, 2024, and Barcelona have reportedly received three offers or multiple offers for three important players. Also, the club met today with Ronald Araujo's agent in the city of Barcelona. I'm going to tell you all the results of that meeting. And finally, it's official, but Barcelona will be open to hearing offers for Jules Kounde. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo and this is Barca News' live podcast scheduled on every Mondays and Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where not only do we discuss the news, but I also get to interact with all of you wonderful people in the chat section by reading your comments out loud, answering any questions, and getting that discussion going. This is not to be confused with the post-match live analysis, which is the live streams that happen as soon as the Barcelona match ends and where we discuss the analysis of the match. Now, for those of you who will be watching this podcast when it ends, I will be leaving timestamps in the description, chapters in the timeline in case you do want to skip through the discussion. Now, having said all that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. All this helps this channel continue to grow so I can continue bringing you the most up-to-date Barcelona news. Now let's start with the news because today was a hectic day in FC Barcelona. There's a lot of news coming out of Barcelona camp. In fact, I'm gonna have to make a second video as soon as this podcast ends, because if I did all the news during this podcast would end up being 10 hours. So I'm just gonna do half the news with the other half coming in the second video. And by the way, before I forget, it is February 14th, so happy Valentine to all of you guys, to all you ladies and gentlemen watching out there. But let's start with the news because, as you already know, Barcelona are set to play against Celta Vigo during this weekend. And as soon as that match is over, 2-3 days later, we do have to travel to Italy to play the round of 16 of the Champions League against Napoli. And well, bad news because it's reported that neither Ferran Torres nor Joao Felix will be ready for that match. And we know that Joao Felix suffered an ankle injury during practice. We had Ferran Torres, who suffered a thigh injury. They were both trying to recover and train so they can be able to be healthy for the first leg of the Champions League. Unfortunately, after undergoing medical exams, the club has confirmed that neither player will be ready for the first leg of the Champions League. Of course, they could be back by the second leg, but just know that Barcelona will be traveling to Italy without Ferran Torres and Joao Felix. Of course, two big losses added to the other big losses, which are, of course, Gabi and Balde, who are out for the rest of the season. And then there is Marcos Alonso, who should be back sometime in March, but I don't think we missed him that much. Not to be mean, with all respect to Marcos Alonso. But that's the situation. Now, more news because it's reported that Barcelona have officially received offer for three important players. Now, as we've been talking about for quite some time now, Barcelona need to offload players during this summer transfer market. The club needs to raise money. They need to raise money in order to meet the one-to-one rule, and they need money in order to make signings, because they have to reinforce the pivot position, which is the number one priority. There's other positions that need to be reinforced, for example, the left wing. So Barcelona need to offload players. Of course, Javier Tebas changed the rules. He's no longer going to accept economic levers. So since Barcelona cannot activate any more economic levers, the only way to raise the money to go under the one-to-one rule and to make signings is by the offloading of players. And as I said before, there are currently 5 players who are absolutely untouchable: Araujo, Pedri, Gabi, Lamine Yamal, and Ter Stegen. And besides those 5 players, if Barcelona receive a big offer for any other player, they will be forced to sit down and consider the offer because, again, Barcelona need to offload players. Now, we are not the only ones who know this. All the other clubs around Europe know this. They're all watching the situation at the club. And as such, Jean Laporta himself has confirmed that Barcelona have already received offers for 3 important players. And those players are number 1, Ronald Araujo, number 2, Frenkie de Jong, and number 3, Rafinha. So Barcelona have already received offers for those 3 players, Araujo, Frenkie de Jong, and Rafinha. And I'm going to be discussing each one of these, except for Rafinha. We've known that he's had a lot of interest in the Premier League since last summer. But we will talk about the other 2, Ronald Araujo and Frenkie de Jong, in a little bit. But let's first start with the chat section, and then we'll continue with the news. All right, I see a lot of people were waiting. Thank you guys for waiting. I apologize for the delay. I was driving in from work, and I ran into a little bit of traffic, but let's see. Igor says, not enough hosts for this broadcast. We need some more. You know what? That's definitely on my plans as the channel grows. I'm always trying to come up with new ideas for the channel. And one of my ideas is that the future podcasts, I want them to be with people. I want to not even have to discuss news during a podcast, just do like the news videos. And then during the podcast, I would love to have guests and just talk about football, like talk about different topics, discuss, have people chime in the chat section. I think that would be amazing. Of course, but now the channel's still growing. It's a lot harder to get people to join a channel when it's still small. People are more likely to work with channels that are bigger. So if you guys keep, hitting that like button, if you subscribe, if you recommend the channel and help it grow, hopefully that can be part of the growth, which is having more people on the podcast. Baby's Comeback says, what's up, Mo? I think Barca should look away from Tuchel. He's, in my opinion, damaged goods. If not Hansi, then Nagelsmann. I don't know why Tuchel gets a lot of hate. I'm not saying that he's my favorite one or that Barcelona should for sure sign him, but I don't think he's a bad coach. I mean, he won the Champions League with Chelsea. Sure, he didn't win the Champions League with PSG. He still took him to the final, which is huge, especially because it's PSG. And now with Bayern, things might not be going that well, but Bayern is not really going that well for several other reasons, not just the coach. A lot of their players are aging. There's, a lot of internal fighting within the club. There's all kinds of reasons too. I don't think he's a bad coach. So I don't understand why people are hating on him. Again, I'm not saying he's my option to be next coach, but he's definitely not a bad coach. 2 finals in a row in the Champions League. I mean, that's pretty good. I don't know. But let's see. What else? Klaus says, Tottenham, 60 million for Frenkie. That's a good segue because let's start talking about these players that I just mentioned. Starting with, of course, Ronald Araujo, because, ladies and gentlemen, Ronald Araujo's agent was in the city of Barcelona today. He met with the club, and you won't believe what he told the club. Now, as we know, there's been a lot of talks linking Ronald Araujo to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich believe that Ronald Araujo is absolutely essential to the project that they're building. They're willing to offer as much as 100 million euros for Ronald Araujo. They tried in the winter transfer market, but Ronald Araujo said, I'm not interested. The club also said they're not for sale. They're reportedly going to try again during the summer, and they're willing to offer those 100 million because they think that Barcelona are not going to be able to say no to it because Barcelona are in a difficult financial situation, which everybody knows. Now, Ronald Araujo has said that he's only interested in staying in Barcelona. He's happy at the club, especially after he got his captain armband. He feels very important in the locker room and on the field. The club have no interest in selling him. They consider him an absolute untouchable player. They're going to reject any offer unless the player himself, of course, says I want to leave. In that case, there's no other option. But Araujo wants to stay. The club wants him to stay. And as such, the club want to extend his contract. Now, Ronald Araujo's contract expires in the summer of 2026, so in 2.5 years. They want to extend it even more because they consider him a cornerstone of Barcelona's project. And they also want to raise his salary because they see all these other clubs, trying to tempt him away. Manchester United had offered him double the salary in the past. Bayern Munich are offering him also double the salary. So not only do they want to extend his contract because he's a very important player, they also want to increase his salary because A, he deserves it, and B, to kind of fend away the temptations from these other clubs. Now, as such, Barcelona met with Ronald Araujo's agent today. He landed in the city of Barcelona, headed to Barcelona's offices to talk about this. And the club told the agent, we want to extend the contract of Araujo. We want to offer him more years. We want to offer him more salary. And Araujo's agent said that Araujo is very happy in Barcelona, that they're very flattered about this offer, but that they still have 2.5 more years. So not saying that they rejected it, not saying that they want to leave, still confirming that they're very happy in Barcelona, that they want to stay in Barcelona, by saying, hold on a minute, we still have 2.5 years to go. It's too early to talk about renewals. Now, this could be interpreted both ways. It could be, on one way, they're saying maybe they're not sure about staying, and that's why they're not willing to commit yet. Or maybe they do want to stay, but, they do have 2.5 years left. So maybe they just don't want to rush it. I don't know. You tell me what you guys think. How do you read in this situation? Let me know in the chat section. And then let's get back to the chat section. Speaking of the chat section. All right. Sean says, hey, Mo, I was wondering, couldn't Barcelona sign Flick now and use him to advise Xavi? No. There's no financial fair play room for anything. So we cannot sign Flick now. And plus, no coach, even if we did have the financial fair play, no coach is going to want another coach telling them how to do his job. It's just in any sport. Imagine you are supervisor of a company and then the company hires another supervisor so they can tell you how to do your job. You'd be pretty pissed. You'd be like, excuse me, I'm still the supervisor the last time I checked. So no. Let's see. King Hut says, hey, Mo, always here to support the stream. My friend and I were talking, had an epiphany. What if we sold Rafinha and brought back Fati and Julian Araujo? Would that impact our bench attacking wise? I do have news about Julian Araujo. It's not going to be enough time to put it in the podcast, so I'm going to be doing a separate video, and I will be talking about Julian Araujo. And as I've said many, many times before, if Ansu Fati can stay healthy, I would be more than happy having him because A, we don't have anyone on the left wing. B, Ansu Fati is incredibly gifted and talented. People forget how gifted and talented he is because of his injuries. So if he can stay healthy, I'm all for it. And plus, we forget Ansu Fati is only 20 or 21. And he still has a long career ahead of him. And he's still got plenty of time to fully recover. People say, oh, he's done. His career is done. But that's not true. Let's not forget İlkay Gündoğan, when he was in his early 20s, he had a really bad back injury. And he was constantly in and out of the hospital because of his back. And people said, that's it. His career is over. But not only did he recover from it and he hasn't suffered anything from his back, but he went on to win a sextuple. Well, actually, a triple. He didn't finish a sextuple because he came to Barca. So don't say Ansu Fati's career is over yet because he's still pretty young. And we got our first donation for tonight. Baby Scumbag, who says, keep up the good content, man. Thank you, Baby Scumbag. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for your words. It's people like you who keep me going despite the headaches that this club keeps giving me. But let's get back to the news because we do have to talk about the second player who Barcelona have already received offers for. And it's no other than, of course, Frenkie de Jong. Now, I'm telling you right now, and I think I said this before in a previous video, there will be a Frenkie de Jong saga come this summer. Now, a few months back, if you would have asked Frenkie, he would have said, absolutely not. I have no intention of leaving. I want to stay in Barcelona. If you would have asked Barcelona, Barcelona would have said, absolutely not. We have no intention of selling Frenkie de Jong. And that's it. Chapter closed. Nobody wants to leave. And it would have been over. But now they are confirming internal sources that Barcelona will hear offers for Frenkie de Jong in the summer. He is no longer untouchable. Frenkie de Jong used to be an untouchable player. Used to be a player that no matter what kind of offer we received, absolutely not, reject it. We're not interested to hear any offers. But that is no longer the case. And it's for several reasons. Number one, I told you about the report recently by Luis Canut, a very close friend of Frenkie de Jong, who dropped a bombshell and said that Frenkie de Jong is now having doubts about staying in Barcelona. He's having doubts because when he joined, he imagined joining, a winning project, winning trophies. Of course, ever since he joined in 2019, it's been a lot of disappointments. So Frenkie de Jong is now having doubts about staying in Barcelona. He hasn't made a decision about leaving yet, but he's definitely having doubts about staying. The second reason is that Barcelona made Frenkie de Jong a contract renewal offer 3 months ago, and he still hasn't replied to it. And this renewal offer does not include a salary reduction. So it's not like, oh, maybe it's because, salary reduction, he doesn't want to reduce his salary. That's why he hasn't replied. No, that's not even an excuse. And the third reason why he's no longer untouchable is because there's a lot of people within the club who believe that Frenkie de Jong never really has not lived up to the expectations that the club had of him. Remember, when Frenkie de Jong was at Ajax, he looked to be incredibly promising. He seemed like he was going to become one of the best, if not the best midfielder in the world. And as such, Barcelona forked out 90 million euros to sign him. So he came to the club with lots of expectations. The first few seasons, I believed he did not live up to him at all under Valverde, Setien, or Koeman. I do think Xavi has been able to extract the best form of Frenkie de Jong yet, but there's a lot of people within the club who still think that he has not lived up to the expectations that they had of him when they signed him. They believe he's more of a player that goes through phases where he's really incredible and phases where he's not so much. So there are people within the club who don't believe that he has lived up to it. So for all these reasons, the fact that Frenkie de Jong is having doubts about staying, the fact that Frenkie de Jong has not answered Barcelona's renewal offer for 3 months, and the fact that there's people in the club who believe that he hasn't lived up to his expectations, that is why Frenkie de Jong is no longer an untouchable player, and Barcelona are now open to hearing offers for him in the summer. And it seems that Barcelona have already received offers for Frenkie de Jong. It seems that Manchester United are still heavily interested in the player. Tottenham Hotspur are also interested in the player. And they're saying that there are other Premier League clubs who would also be interested in Frenkie. Barcelona are talking about a minimum of 80 million euros offers. They're not going to entertain anything below that. And that ideally they're looking to make about 100 million euros of his transfer, which, looking at the market the way it is right now, I don't think that's unreasonable. We've seen Premier League clubs pay an arm and a leg for players who are much less skilled, who are much less experienced. So I think 100 million euros for Frenkie is not unreasonable. And Premier League clubs have plenty of money and they could easily pay that. But that's the news. Frenkie no longer untouchable. Barcelona open to hearing offers, and they want to make at least 80 million, but ideally 100 million. Let's get back to the chat section, and we do have another donation. Let's see. Whoa, that is not the donation. There we go. And this, let me put on my glasses. I feel like an old man, but Ras Canjero says, should we build around Lewa? Would just bench him unless we can play the football he wants us to play. Better that system than no systems. Should we build around Lewy? I don't think so, not because he's not good. Again, people keep forgetting because he's going through a bad phase or his bad form right now. People forget that he is one of the best strikers of our generation. A guy who has been scoring 40, 50 goals every season for the past 10 seasons, and a guy who's won everything there is to win, including a sextuple, something that very, very few players have done in the world, including Cristiano, who's supposed to be, one of the best. So it's not because he's not good we shouldn't build around him. It's because his age. He's 35 years old, and he's going to be gone soon, right? Whether it's this summer, whether it's next summer, he's going to be gone pretty soon because he's old. It's just the reality of football, the reality of life. So that's why I don't think we should build around him. We should build around someone who's young, maybe like Lamine, or if you want to build around a center forward, do it around Vitor Roque or do it around Margiu or Pau Victor, but not around Lewandowski because Lewandowski is he's 35. It doesn't make sense to build a young project around a 35-year-old who in a season or two will be gone. And then what do? You just built a whole system around them. So yeah, but thank you for your donation and good question. And let's see more. My man Ra says, what makes us can help Barca if Bayern, a club with good players and money and no debt, are bad? Seriously wondering, do I like him generally speaking? No. I mean, this whole reasoning of, oh, this coach didn't work with this club, so why would he work with others, is not as something that can be applied as easily as it's said. You know, just because a coach fails with one club doesn't mean he's going to fail with another, or just because a coach succeeds with one club doesn't mean he succeeds with another. There's so many factors at play that you cannot just make the straight conclusion, which I see a lot of people doing this all the time on my comments, like, oh, Tuchel failed here, that means he's going to fail here at Barca. Or I don't know, Flick failed with the German team, that means he's going to fail at Barca. And it's not as straightforward as that. It's not as simplistic as just saying he failed here, that means he'll fail here, or he succeeded here, means he succeeded here. Bayern are going through a lot of turmoil. This talks about their locker room being fractured. Their players are aging. There's a lot of internal problems within their board. There's more to Bayern than just, oh, Tuchel sucks. Because look how many coaches they've been through, and nobody seems to find a winning formula. And if Tuchel is sacked at the end of the season and they bring someone else, I don't see things improvement either, because right now they don't have a project. Right now they kind of have the golden era Bayern that won the sextuple, and that team is like starting to age, and they're just trying to patch it up. Like, oh, let's bring in De Ligt. And that just doesn't work. It's like Barcelona a few years ago, right? Barcelona under Valverde, Barcelona under Koeman, where we had our golden era Barcelona, who were Asian. Messi was Asian, Suarez was Asian, Busquets was Asian, Xavi had just retired, Iniesta had just retired. And the team was kind of falling apart because they were all Asian, but we weren't really replacing and starting from scrap. We are now. Now we have a brand new project. We have youngsters pretty much in every position. Now we can say we have a project. Of course, it needs to be developed, but we have one. Bayern have not reached that point yet. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a Bayern fan. I don't follow them, religiously to where I can say, but anyways. More donations, and the first one is from Ghost. Thank you, Ghost, for your donation, but it says, is it true that Barca may consider signing Tuchel in case he left Bayern? If so, I would rather get Mitchell than Tuchel. Yes, that is, look, if the reason why Tuchel is back on the list is because there's talks that Bayern want to hire Flick. They want to sack Tuchel and they want to hire Flick. They want to bring back Flick. So if that happens, obviously Tuchel will be back on Barcelona's list, because Tuchel has always been on Laporta's list. Laporta has always been an admirer of the German school of thought. He's, he wanted Tuchel, Flick, or Nagelsmann or Klopp to be Barcelona's manager when he was a candidate. So the fact that if Tuchel becomes free, he would be on the list. Does not mean Barcelona are going to hire him. He would just become a candidate again. As far as Mitchell, the chances are almost zero that we would get him, because he's part of Girona. He's part of the Man City group. Man City group have all the money in the world, and they're not going to be lured by Barcelona's offer. They can simply just up the contract of Mitchell. Plus, Mitchell being part of the Man City group, he probably has aspirations to maybe becoming one day Manchester City's coach if Pep Guardiola leaves, which eventually he will. So the chances of bringing Mitchell are very, very small. And one more donation with Marek says, Mo, if I fear that the players we want to sell won't leave. That's always obviously a risk, but the players that it's being talked about right now, it's players who have said or they're having doubts, like Frenkie's having doubts. We'll talk about Kounde next, but normally it's, I don't want to say easy, but normally it's a pretty straightforward operation to get rid of players who still have contracts, because you tell them, look, we don't count on you. Look for a new club because you're not going to play. And most players want to play. So they're like, okay, if these guys don't count on me, yes, I have a contract. Yes, technically I could stay on the bench and just collect the paycheck, Most players don't want that. Most players know their career are super short. They're only professional football players for 10, maybe 15 years. They don't want to waste 2-3 years out of those 10 years sitting on a bench. So they end up agreeing to leave, right? There are very few occasions where players say, no, I want to stay, like Umtiti. Umtiti, we told him a million times, dude, you're not going to play. You're going to be on the bench. And he was like, all right, cool. I don't care. Every now and then you do come across players like that, but most players want to leave. They end up leaving because they want to play. But anyways, I've been talking for a while. Thank you for you guys' donation. You guys are amazing. But let's do the last bit of news because it's now been confirmed. It's official that Barcelona will hear offers for Jules Kounde. Yes. If you would have asked me last summer, or you would have asked Barcelona last summer, they would have said absolutely not. He's untouchable. But that is no longer the case. And it's for several reasons. Number one reason is Barcelona have a surplus of center backs. We have Araujo, we have Christensen, we have Kounde, we have Iñigo Martinez, we have Pau Cubarsí, who just exploded back, just got promoted or just made it to the first team or made a big impression on the first team. We have Shad Riyad, who Barcelona are trying to bring back. We have Eric Garcia, whose loan is over at the end of the season. No option to buy. Of course, they do want to offload him, but there's no option or obligation to buy. So that's 7 right there. And then we're talking about center backs in the academy. We have Mika Faye. We have Mamadou Mbake. 2 center backs who are showing that they have the quality of becoming first-team center backs. So we have a surplus of center backs. So Barcelona are now have to offload some. You cannot have 20 center backs on the team. So now the question is, which center back do you get rid of? Araujo, we already know he's untouchable. So that leaves you with Christensen, Kounde, and Iñigo. And out of those 3, the most profitable one would be Jules Kounde. Because Kounde has the most market value out of all those 3. Iñigo Martinez, he's towards the end of his career. He's 32 or 33. Christensen has a good market value, 40 million. But Kounde has a higher market value, and Kounde is younger. So Kounde still has a longer career. He still hasn't even reached his prime. So that's the second reason. And the third reason why Barcelona are open to sell him is because Kounde is reportedly not happy at the club that he's been playing right back and his performance, right? When he's played as a right back, he's had some good performances, decent performances. But when he's played as a center back, he's been an absolute disaster this season. Last season, fantastic. This season, disaster, right? So a lot of people within the club are having doubts about him. Some people within the club think that Kounde's bad form right now is just, a symptom of the fact that the whole team is going through a bad form. But others think that maybe he just doesn't have what it takes to be a Barcelona center back. And as such, the club want to sell him before his value starts to go down. So, result of all this, Barcelona having surplus of center backs, Kounde having the most market value, the fact that Kounde is not impressing within the club and he's also unhappy has now put Barcelona in a position where they're officially now open to hearing offers from Kounde. It's reported there's a lot of interest in the Premier League, but again, Premier League, apparently they're interested in everybody. They have the money to buy everybody. So we're definitely going to be talking about Kounde for quite some time. So stay tuned to the channel, guys. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and the little bell because I have a feeling that this few months is going to be chaotic. All right, let's get back to the chat section. And we do have a donation from my man Ross. He says, thank you, Mo. Thank you, Ross. You're freaking amazing. Ross has been a supporter of the channel for a very long time. He always makes the live streams. You are amazing. Thank you, sir. And Klaus, another longtime supporter of the channel, says Umtiti was enjoying the Spanish sun, the money, and good barbecue. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And he wasted, 2-3 seasons where he could have been playing. By the way, that reminds me. Let me say something real quick because I've been getting a lot of comments of people trying to blame Barcelona's sluggishness and Barcelona's slow movement of the ball on players, saying, it's Pedri's fault, it's Frenkie's fault, it's Gundogan's fault, etc. And I think people are missing the point. The reason Barcelona are so sluggish and slow in the movement of the ball is because the club or the team has no mechanisms in place. And when I say mechanisms in place, I mean automatic movements or automatic passes. And what that looks like is, for example, if someone passes the ball to me, as the ball is coming to me, I already know where my teammate is running to. I don't have to look up to confirm it. I just know. So when the ball gets to me, all I have to do is pass the ball to that zone because I know he's going to be there. How do I know that my teammate is going to be there? Because during training, the coach drew it up on the board and said, when this player has the ball, this player goes here, this other player runs here, this other player runs here. And then you go on a training field and you train it over and over again until it becomes muscle memory, until it becomes an instinct. Barcelona don't have that. They don't have mechanisms. So what happens is when a player gets the ball, he has to stop, he has to look up, he has to look around, he has to scan the field, and he has to make a decision. By then, it's too late. Defenders already marking him, the space already closed, and that's why Barcelona are very sluggish. That's why Barcelona moved the ball so slow. It's not because Pedri, it's not because Frenkie, it's not because Kounde. If tomorrow Barcelona signed Rodri, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, the result is going to be the same because there's not going to be any mechanisms in place. Because modern football is extremely fast. Modern football is all about split seconds. And modern football does not allow you that time to look around, to think what you're going to do. It doesn't. It's too fast. So the way you combat that is through training these mechanisms, these automatic passes, automatic movements. That's how you combat that, right? Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets were not the fastest players on earth. They really weren't. Busquets was pretty slow. But yet they moved the ball faster than anyone else in the world. How? Through these mechanisms, right? Because Pep Guardiola taught them these mechanisms and they trained it. They practiced it. That's how they did it. When you watch Pep Guardiola's Barca, all those tiki-taka, all those triangulations, 1, 2, 3, 4, goal, that was not freestyling. That was not by coincidence. That was not the players just going with the flow or reacting. This was trained. This was drawn on a map and then practiced during training. And this is not a coincidence. So that's why Barcelona are sluggish, because Xavi, which is ironic because Xavi was the perfect maestro of this kind of movement, is just simply not teaching his players to do that. That's why Barcelona are slow. That's why they're sluggish. The reason I bring it up again, because I've been getting a lot of comments of people like, oh, our movement is so slow. It's because Pedri or Frenkie or Kounde. And it's like, no, there's no mechanisms in place. That's why it's slow. All right, let's see. Let's do a few more comments and then we'll end the live stream because I do have to make a video because, again, lots of news today from Camp Barca. And King Huds, who says, when we first signed Kounde, I don't know if it's just me, but I saw him and Araujo becoming the brothers of destruction and defense in La Liga, and they did so in their debut season together, but it has fallen off. I thought so too. I thought, oh my God, I said Araujo and Kounde, they're both amazing center backs. They're both young. They're both strong and physical. I was like, this is going to be, Piqué and Puyol all over again, but even better. And unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but anyways, let's see. Igor says, please don't mention Eric Garcia in vain. It's the worst Siberia. No, it's not. Stop it. Eric Garcia is probably right now one of the best center backs in La Liga. He single-handedly canceled our entire attack. When Barcelona played against Girona, Eric Garcia single-handedly stopped our attack. Sure, he had a bad performance against Real Madrid, but all players have a bad performance. You can't look at one match and be like, look, he's the worst. Messi used to have matches where he would just be completely ghost. Like, you wouldn't even know that he was there. Does that mean Messi's the worst player to ever wear the Barcelona jersey? No. But yeah. Marek says, Mo, Pedri has to shoot more on goal. He sometimes passes too much. He should try to shoot, especially outside the box. Does he have the ability to make long shots? Remember, it's easy to say players should just shoot from outside the box. But the question is, can those players have the ability to make that shot? Because if they don't, then no, they shouldn't, because you're just wasting the ball. Because to make a shot from outside the box, it takes some special skill. Your shot has to be very powerful, it has to be incredibly fast, and it has to be very accurate. And mostly very fast, because when you're shooting from outside the box, it's a long distance. And that gives the goalie plenty of time to see the ball and position himself to block it. So it has to be very fast to where that doesn't give the goalkeeper enough time to react. So the question is, do those players, can they make those shots? Because very few people in the footballing world can make outside of the box shots. That's the reason why a lot of players don't do it. It's not because they're afraid or because their coach doesn't tell them to. It's because simply a lot of players can't do it. It's a special skill. Not everybody can be Roberto Carlos, General Khan says, just look at Brighton. They have a pattern of play. Their defense bait opponents to press, and then they counter with their wingers. Yes. And we have no patterns. We have zero patterns, zero identity, zero everything. Klaus says, a good manager could change the fate of our club for the better. I agree. Especially right now. We're in a critical time. We're having very young, incredible players. And these players need someone who can mold them into becoming winners and champions. And if we just keep going through, bad coaches, and these players are going to keep getting older and older, and then we just wasted a whole generation of skillful players. Plus, you also run the risk that they end up leaving. If you're Lamine Yamal and you're going to be, you're showing promise of becoming one of the best players in the world, why would you want to stay in a team that is constantly a mess? So we need someone now. This is the critical time. It's now or never. We need the right coach to come. Who's the right coach? I don't know. That's going to be up to Barcelona to decide. I don't know how people can make such, be so certain with their answers. Like, has to be Nagelsmann or no one else, or it has to be Flick or no one else. Like, how do you know? You can't. So that's up to Barcelona to decide. General Kanki says, I love Kounde because of his fashion. I love the way he dresses, nothing related to football. It's not my style. I've seen his pictures, not my style. But I wonder if Kounde put in as much effort on the field as he does in his outfits, if it would be a different outcome. And then a last comment will say, Dr. Baharadawaj says, Mo, love from India. What do you think about the current Barca squad? Whom do you think we need to pursue in the next transfer market with low financial status? We definitely need a pivot, which Barcelona already said they will make a big investment. And we need a left wing. That's the two main priorities because we don't have anyone for the left wing. Then we can talk about other things like, maybe bring in a substitute for Lamine, maybe if you want to bring substitute for Balde, which you don't have to because we have Alex Valle. Maybe if you want to bring someone for the right back position, which again, you don't have to. We have Julian Araujo, we have Hector Fort, we have Cancelo. But the priority has to be the pivot and the left wing. Left wing, I would like to see Mitoma. I think he's doing excellent with Brighton. I think very interesting kind of winger. He's in his prime. He has Premier League experience. I love though how he dribbles past players. In the pivot, depends what you want to go for. If you want to do a defensive destroyer kind of pivot, physically strong, potent, Onana's a good option. If you want someone who's more about, finesse with the ball, I think Subimendi would be a good option. So those are the two positions that we definitely need to reinforce. Anyways, that is all, guys. I'm gonna close this and then immediately start making the video which should be up in an hour or two. Again, lots of news today, so make sure to check out that video. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for all the donations. I think this was a record for all the donations. You guys are absolutely amazing. And I will see you in the next video. As always, be Scars.